The one who repaired the Astral Express. To witness the vast starry sky, she decided to travel with the Astral Express. Her hobby is brewing handmade coffee. Himeko is a 5-star fire character that specializes in dealing AoE damage and inflicting enemies with the burn debuff. She follows the erudition path. Naturally, as an erudition class character, she will deal AoE damage, making it easier to fight groups of enemies. This includes bosses that keep summoning reinforcements. As a fire character, this means that if Himeko is the one who depletes the enemy's toughness bar, she will deal high amounts of extra fire damage and inflict a burn debuff for 2 turns. While Fire Element's break effect has weak damage over time, it boasts one of the strongest extra damage. Himeko's AoE capabilities are further complemented by her talent, which is her main gimmick. Every time an enemy's toughness bar is broken, Himeko gains 1 charge. Whenever she reaches 3 charges, she will automatically launch a follow-up attack that deals AoE damage. If the enemy being broken is an elite or a boss type, she will instantly gain full charges and launch a follow-up attack. There are multiple websites out there that will allow you to read Himeko's kit, or you can simply log into the game and check Himeko's ability and trace descriptions. I will only talk about important topics. First, let's oversimplify Himeko's kit and look at her modifiers, using level 10 traces for her skill, ultimate and talent, while keeping basic attack at level 6. An E0 Himeko's modifiers are as follows. Skill is 220%, ultimate is 230%, talent is 140%, and basic attack is 100%. We should all know by now that damage dealers are SP hungry since they want to spam their skills as much as possible for best energy generation. Next, we factor other things that can be utilized by Himeko. Let's start with the gears. Himeko has 2 good options when it comes to picking a Cavern Relic set. She can be good with the Thief set or the Firesmith set. It is even possible to mix both. Considering that Himeko's skill is pretty strong and she would most likely spam it, we'll choose the Firesmith set for now. Later in the video, I will explain more about the strength of Break Effect stat. We're not going to factor in her Eidolons because getting Himeko duplicates is extremely hard. This is the main reason why the title specifically states E0 Himeko. I could, however, give some of my opinions about her Eidolons near the end of the video. So let's quickly summarize that. 1. The Firesmith set gives an extra 12% damage boost to the wearer's skill. 2. Oversimplifying it, Himeko's skill becomes 232%. 3. Naturally, skill is more spammable than ultimate or follow-ups. It seems pretty clear where Himeko's kit is centered around. Her skill. Now that we know how strong Himeko's skill is, we need to figure out her attack pattern while maintaining efficiency. This way, we don't waste any energy she generates. So normally, without triggering any follow-up attack, if Himeko performs 4 skills in a row, she will gather enough energy for her ultimate. 5 extra energy is within acceptable terms. Now that we have our attack pattern, it is going to be easier to calculate how light cones directly affect Himeko's performance in extreme detail. The link to my calculator is in the video description. I won't explain how it works since that will take forever, but you are free to make a copy of it for personal use. Before we start, I would need to emphasize that Himeko is using boots with speed as the main stat for her build. This means that the numbers would look lower than expected, but technically, her total damage per game cycle is higher. To help with comparisons, let's first take a look at your best and most accessible option, the seriousness of breakfast. This is the stats of S5 breakfast using Himeko's optimal attack pattern, but with the assumption that Himeko performs 2 follow-up attacks per ultimate cycle. I now added DPT, which averages the character's total raw damage per ultimate cycle into per turn. Basically, it's similar to raw DPS, but instead measured as damage per turn. For now, let's use Herta's DPT with S5 Breakfast for comparison. As you can see, Himeko's DPT is almost double of Herta's. However, it is important to note that Herta's damage are all true AoE damage, while Himeko's damage is actually much more focused towards a single target due to her skill being Blast type. But then again, this Himeko build factors in that she is wearing boots with speed as main stat, so her turns cycle faster, which technically pulls her further ahead. I just wanted to mention that because these kinds of comparisons can look very skewed. Now let's look at Himeko's best overall light cone option. You all probably guessed it already, that is Before Dawn. An S1 Before Dawn is 6.38% stronger than S5 Breakfast. You might be wondering why the gap is so little. Well, that's mainly due to Himeko's massive base attack stat, which is 756. For perspective, if we simply factor in the base attack given by Before Dawn, Herta gains a whole 100% performance increase while Himeko only gets 77%. So for some who always complain about not having Before Dawn, please, you're not exactly missing out. The Himeko you're seeing in the background is just using S5 Breakfast too. Other light cone options will be listed in the final build section. Please make sure to read the notes I wrote for each light cone so you don't get confused. Before entering a battle, Himeko's technique can be used to apply a debuff on all enemies, which increases the fire damage they take by 10% for 2 turns. Techniques like these are very valuable, as it helps your team easily do a 0-cycle clear on the first wave when doing MOC. I actually forgot to mention this in my Herta guide. Herta's technique is extremely good for the very same reason. Himeko's technique is special in a way that it will reapply on the next enemy waves as well. The only problem with this is that Himeko normally doesn't build her effect hit rate so it can get resisted. In battle, Himeko is played in quite a weird way. Against a single boss, you only need to keep spamming her skill. It would also help if you can time her ultimates to break the enemy's toughness bar, or have allies hold back with their attacks so you can time Himeko's skill to break the enemy. Against 2 bosses, Himeko and the team need to focus on one boss at a time until the target boss has their toughness bar broken. Since the target is a boss, Himeko would automatically perform a follow-up attack against both bosses. This is where the weirdness comes in. Normally, it is better to keep focusing on one boss until it is dead, so that there will be a lot less pressure on your team. In Himeko's case, after breaking one of the bosses, you immediately switch your focus towards the other boss. Why? Because this would allow the other boss to recover their toughness bar. But why would you let it recover? The answer is the combination of Fire's break effect and Himeko's follow-up attacks. The more breaks you do, the more you utilize the strong break effect damage of fire element characters. The more breaks you do, the more you let Himeko perform her follow-up attacks for extra damage. This would also mean that Himeko is anti-synergistic with characters that delays an enemy's action or applies slow debuff. So try not to pair her with Welt. If you pair her with Silverwolf, make sure that Silverwolf does not trigger her quantum break effect. Obviously, once you also broke the toughness bar of the other boss, you switch back your focus to the boss that just recovered. Repeat until both are dead. Finally, let's talk about her synergy with other characters. Since Himeko will be spamming her skill, she will be considered SP negative. This automatically means she is very good with SP positive characters. Asta is currently the best support for Himeko, but SP can be an issue depending on how you built your Asta. One of Asta's traces provides all allies an 18% fire damage increase. Himeko's 96 base speed makes her a naturally slow character. Asta is able to provide a speed buff through her ultimate, which helps with this problem. As a Fire Harmony character, she can wear Planetary Rendezvous LC and further boost the fire damage of all fire characters in the team. Whether Asta being SP positive or negative will depend on you. Personally, I will optimize Asta for a critical build so she will be SP negative. Fire Trailblazer is a great SP positive shielder to pair with Himeko. Himeko's A6 trace provides 15% critical rate to herself, as long as her HP is above 80%. Fire Trailblazer being able to taunt enemies, provide some shields and damage reduction to the team, would mean that she can help Himeko stay above 80% HP. Fire Trailblazer's damage output with an optimized build is also not something to be underestimated, especially with the support of Asta. As usual, I don't believe that there's such a thing as best team or fixed team for a character. That would always depend on the stage you are trying to clear, but I would consider Asta as a staple support for Himeko. Before proceeding to Himeko's final build, I would like to answer whether it is worth building Himeko with break effect stats or not. Explaining everything would take forever, so I hope you don't mind me skipping through a lot of details and just focus on what's important. So, hypothetically, let's say we are fighting the two final bosses of MOC9's second half, Cocolia and Ice Out of Space. We're under the assumption that for each ultimate cycle of Himeko, she performs one toughness break on each boss. If we equip Himeko with a 64.8% break effect rope, she will get an extra 28k DPT. If we equip Himeko with a 43.2% attack rope, she will get an extra 8k DPT. This is actually one of the best, if not the best, case scenario to showcase a hybrid build for Himeko due to Cocolia's presence in the fight. Cocolia's thick toughness bar causes break damage to increase significantly. In much more common scenarios, a break effect rope would only provide 20k DPT more or less. Further reduce it by half if there's only one enemy, so 10k DPT. Interestingly, that is still higher than what an attack rope could give. One might think, whoa, dreamy, aren't those numbers too high? I can't seem to see that in your showcase even though you have more than 100% break effect stat. Well, the thing is, all the numbers I provide to you are raw damage while ignoring enemy defense. The biggest issue with break effect damage is that it is very hard to boost. Meanwhile, it is very easy to boost the damage of a character's attacks. For example, none of Asta's buffs affect the break damage of Himeko. Yet Asta provides massive fire damage boost and attack stat increase to Himeko's attacks. The best way to boost the damage of break effect is to reduce enemy defense. Another method is to apply a debuff that increases the damage enemies take, such as applying vulnerability debuffs. So if you really want to see the full potential of a hybrid build, you would definitely need a defense shredder in Himeko's team alongside Asta. The reason why my MOC9 showcase with a hybrid Himeko still looked impressive is due to the fact that fire break damage is simply that strong, despite most of its damage getting mitigated by enemy defense. Overall, Himeko is an amazing character. She actually exceeded my expectations after building her and doing days of testing. Whether it is farming in the overworld, fighting both Echo of War bosses, farming in the simulated universe, or even carrying in Memory of Chaos, she is excellent at everything. If I were to put her into a tier, that would be S. The strongest part of her kit is how she did not completely forfeit her single target damage despite following the erudition path. It makes her continue to be competitive even against a single target. Not to mention, Fire Element's break damage is very strong. Regarding her Eidolons, every single one of them is powerful except for E5. E1 solves her speed problems so you can ditch speed boots for attack boots. E2 is a general damage boost with an easy condition. E3 is +2 levels to her skill, which is great because that is her main source of damage after all. E4 means that if an enemy summons 2 enemies, she wouldn't be stuck at 2 out of 3 charges anymore, and will be able to pull off a follow-up attack granted both summoned enemies are broken. E5 is decent, I guess. A slight boost to the damage of her ultimate and talent is welcomed. E6 is definitely powerful, considering that it is an extra 80% damage to her ultimate. It also boosts Himeko's overall performance on a single target. There is this weird misconception about the game where the majority of players think that our main focus should be trying to deal with a single target. The reality is that, starting at MOC6, you rarely find single boss fights. MOC6 onwards is our current endgame, and in this version, Memory of Chaos only has the abundant Eben Dir and Kafka as single boss fights. Everywhere else, you will be fighting 2 bosses at the same time. Not to mention, even though the abundant Eben Dir is a single boss fight, it is a type of boss that keeps summoning reinforcements. Many other bosses are like this as well. Erudition class characters are excellent against this type of boss. Some players are starting to realize the true power of the Erudition class. For example, there are some who see the potential of running a buffer plus debuffer in a single team. The question is, if one of the character slots is for survival, then who would be your solo damage dealer? Unless your hunt character is Seelie, hunt characters usually struggle a lot when facing multiple enemies. While destruction characters have some way to deal AoE damage, they don't exactly deal enough AoE damage to be able to deal with multiple enemies quickly. That leaves you with Erudition class. Erudition class has zero problems dealing with mobs, and with a buffer plus debuffer in the team, they would deal enough damage even against a single target, while their damage increases exponentially against double boss fights. Remember, building 2 damage dealers plus 1 support is much more expensive than building 1 damage dealer plus 2 supports. And that's it for now. Like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more content.